is Dwayne Cave, and I serve as president of the Molten Miguel Water District, the board of directors. And Molten Miguel Water District was one of the founding members to put this event together, but we couldn't do it all alone. We had 8 founding sponsors with us, and I'd like to introduce those at this time. So please give an applaud when we finish the names. We have the Orange County Water District. Okay, go ahead and clap. San Diego County Water Authority. Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. Metropolitan Water District of Southern California. California Forward. Los Angeles Area Chamber of Commerce. Brownstein and Cordova Corporation. From the beginning of the planning process, interest and support for this summit really grew. In addition to the founding sponsors, 18 agencies co-sponsored this event. They also deserve applause, and after hearing who they are, here's the 18. Yorba Linda Water District, South Coast Water District, Santa Margarita Water District, Metropolitan Water District of Orange County, Irvine Ranch Water District, Southern California Water Coalition, BIA of Southern California, Arcadis, Brady, Tetra Tech, Black & Veatch, Dudek, McCarthy, BizFed, Orange County Realtors, Frost, Brown, Todd, Alvarado, Smith, Fauble Public Affairs, and Best & Best Krieger. Let's give them a round of applause. I don't know if you looked around the room, Annie, but we have a lot of elected officials here. So at this time, we'd like to acknowledge your presence. So at this time, can we have all the elected water board members please stand at this point so we can show our appreciation? Please stand. Thank you for being here today. Next, let's have our city and other elected officials stand, including staff representing any state or federal elected officials. So if they would please stand at this time. Hi, Gene. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We appreciate all of our elected officials that take an interest in water because it's extremely important. Now, it's my distinct pleasure to introduce Tracy Hernandez, founding CEO of the Los Angeles County Business Federation, widely known as BizFed. She will introduce the amazing panel we have coming up. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dwayne. I love the energy and enthusiasm. I'm Tracy Hernandez, as Dwayne said, founding CEO of BizFed, going back to Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa. We formed in 2008, so besides when he wanted to run Measure R, it was a half-cent sales tax at the time, pretty darn radical. I had just left the newspaper business and formed this massive coalition, so it was the federation is a network of all the existing business networks into one federation. So that was kind of a radical concept at that time. We had about, at that time, 50 or so amazing distinct business groups like the Building Industry Association or the LA Chamber or the Long Beach Chamber or the National Association of Women Business Owners, the Golf Association, you name it. Okay, so came together to organize this power in numbers and to do what? The point was to do 2 things. Connect employers of every shape and size. Doesn't matter your sector, doesn't matter the business, the size of your company, where you're located. But if you're in California and you're employing people, one is to give you real-time intelligence wherever the government is doing or considering doing something that impacts you as an employer. So it could be in permitting, it can be in wage and hour, it could be in land use, it could be in water access and reliability, energy access and reliability, you name it. If it was impacting you, you needed to know about it. Then the second part, I said we do 2 things, share fast-moving intel. It's then to equip you to then decide, is it a good thing that's in the works? Is it a bad thing that's in the works? And so often, does it just need to be modified? There's aspects of greatness, but with real intelligence and expertise from those of us that are employing people, running companies, it could be made better. And so then do something about it is speak up, be heard, engage, show up, and help elected and appointed officials do the job that they love and want to do to the best of their ability, help them succeed. And so at that point, that's where this power in numbers comes in, and it's so funny. So we had just formed, and Mayor Villaraigosa has this great idea. Let's raise sales taxes in LA. Now, does anyone else remember anything that was happening in 2008? We didn't know if the banks were going to be open or closed, all our mortgages. The economy was in free fall, right? The greatest recession of our entire lifetime had struck, and we were in the middle of that. So let's raise taxes. We don't know if any of us are going to be or have jobs tomorrow, be able to employ people and make payroll. And yet, at that time, I was so proud of all the broad and distinct, disparate business community came together in those very early stages, vetted what the idea was at the Metropolitan Transportation Authority for Los Angeles, and said, you know what? We need what he was just talking about, organized, focused intel. Let's fix our systems. Gridlock was polling as a #1 issue on employers' minds at the time. And so let's organize, do something together, and let's be willing to put skin in the game, but also for quality work with a list of projects that would be delivered to voters, audit and oversight and things like that. And so actually it was a really exciting time. We agreed to say yes, and at the time my last name was Rafter, and so I got asked to sign on the ballot measure. So I was a signer to say yes on the ballot measure for Measure R. My family gave me this plaque, and they're like, thanks for the rafter tax. They called it, the R was a rafter tax. They put it in a frame. I can't believe that's what you're doing. But it led to all kinds of good things. And that was, at that time, it was getting 88 cities, which weren't working together all the time, to come together in the county. Now, fast forward to today, we have 242 different and distinct business groups. Many of them are in Orange County, some in San Diego, a lot in the Inland Empire. We have the Central Valley of California, all organized, 420,000 employers in BizFed working on the tough issues of our day and showing up, speaking up, and being a positive solutions-oriented group. And so when we talk about power numbers, big numbers, have you ever showed up to an event and seen this many chairs seated for one panel? So I'm here to rock your boat. This is a panel of 14 experts, all diverse, representing water agencies, private sector, organized labor, business, everyone who cares about what water is to life, to our businesses, our families, our state, our area of the country. So introducing a mega panel is an understatement. Who can run a mega panel? That's kind of a tall task. I mean, I run a lot of panels. I've been in Orange County a lot, but 14 people. So none other than the famous June Kim Lopez. Have you guys ever met June Lopez? She is a tour de force. I have met and been involved with her. Actually, I love that she runs the water agency, Molten the Gale, really awesome, one of the best water agencies in the state. But she's also a former journalist. She's still doing, journalism with the TV show. She's an engineer. She's, just talented, truly cares, and she's a gatherer of talent and people and a doer, right? So it's my honor today, my privilege, to introduce June Kim Lopez, the panel moderator of your mega panel. June?
So thank you all for being here. This is going to be fun. We're not solving the problems of the world today, maybe another day. But today we're here to really emphasize the importance of relationship, the networking. That's why we call it Water Infrastructure Networking Summit, because through relationship, it's an acronym, everybody wins. So I am going to introduce everyone. So I'm going to start on the far left. That is our friend Alf Brandt. He's a General Counsel, Office of the California State Assembly Speaker Anthony Rendon. Raise your hand, Alf, so they know you. Next to him is Patricia Torres Bruno, Senior Vice President, Chief Public Policy Officer for the LA Area Chamber. Then we have Anselmo Collins, the Senior Assistant General Manager of Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. And then Eric Ekdahl, the Deputy Director of Division of Water Rights, State Water Resource Control Board. We may have to get you security. Water rights is a very hot topic. Sandy Curl, the General Manager of San Diego County Water Authority. Carol Kim, Business Manager of San Diego County Building and Construction Trades Council. Nice to meet you, Carol. It's the first time that we meet, but your last name is Kim, so you're all right. I know, it's just like that. Then Mike Marcus, General Manager of Orange County Water District. Just fresh off of your ceremony, congratulations on the groundwater replenishment system. And then Ernesto Medrano, the council representative at Los Angeles, Orange County Building Trades Council, one of our customers. I know where you live. Tracy Quinn, CEO of Hilda Bay, but also wearing the hat as Metropolitan Water District board member. Then we have Carlos Rodriguez, Chief Policy Officer. Feel free to clap. He is with Building Industry Association of Southern California. Yes, yeah, you got fan base over here. Love the builders. Then we got Nick Serrano. He's a Deputy Chief of Staff, San Diego, Mayor Todd Gloria, and also the Vice Chair of the San Diego County Water Authority. Welcome. And then we have Matthew Swanson, Chairman of the California Water Commission. He holds the purse string. Rocking the beer, love it. Then we have Mayor Aquanetta Warren, the City of Fontana, and also the chair of the Southern California Water Coalition. And last but not least is Micah Weinberg, CEO of California Forward. Let's give him a round of applause. I know you're all going, how is this going to be done? So we're going to do a little lightning round. It's going to be a yes or no. We're just going to warm up their jaws. So I'm going to ask a question. They're all going to say yes or no, but we're going to come back with some follow-up questions because I know you have a lot more to share on this question. And I may turn to you as well. We all love the California Environmental Quality Act, don't we? No? Shocking. Huh. Well, let's ask our panel, starting with Alf. Yes or no, should CEQA be reformed?
No.
Patricia?
Yes.
Yes. Decline to state.
Not expecting that, but not surprising. Go ahead.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
No.
Yes. No. No.
Yes!
Yeah, come on.
All right.
Who are we kidding?
Now, by show of hands in the audience, who thinks CEQA should be reformed? Okay. Put your hands down. Who thinks it should not be reformed? One? That's okay. You got a lot of friends up here. It's all right. We like difference of opinion. So, Alf, I mean, you and I talk about this. You talk about this a lot. Projects not happening. Yes, it is about local agencies taking ownership, but you really don't think that CEQA should have any kind of reform?
There are a lot of ways to deal with CEQA that are, and you know, Mr. Villaraigosa raised some of those ideas of things you could do to get through it quickly. And so I'd say there may be ways to reform, but all the reforms we've seen are gutting it.
Okay, so if it wasn't a gutting, if it was a little bit, you would support it?
I could imagine getting there, yes.
What aspect of the CEQA do you think that you could wrap your arm around sort of reforming? Any aspect of it?
Despite my being a lawyer, I would say some of the litigation,
Okay.
some of the litigation can take forever and can be not about the environment.
Fair enough. You declined to state.
I did, but
But,
as a part of the administration, we can't weigh in directly on potential legislation. I will note, though, that the kind of comparison was made about the sports arenas and the timelines related there. And I will note that it takes 20 to 30 years to do an in-stream flow development, whereas we can build a sports stadium in under 2 years. And is CEQA a big part of that? Yes.
I'm going to come back here because Micah, when we did the prep call, he just said to me, he's like, June, do you want me to be toned down? I'm like, no, be yourself, no filters, no profanity.
Look, I think, okay, so what just happened is indicative of what's going on in the state. When we met with people and talked to them about the fact that there is CEQA streamlining for sports stadiums, but not for climate adaptive infrastructure, they were like, no. I'm like, what do you mean no? They're like, no state would be so stupid to have that as a policy. I do not believe you, Michael Weinberg, wonky head of California nonprofit, right? The people are there. The people here are there, but not just these people. Everybody we met with around California is there. The people that are defending like this law, maybe you're only kind of defending it, so cool, right? But like, are not consistent with the fact that there is a climate emergency. We need to be able to build things, and we cannot. And that is a problem.
Now, Tracy, you wear multiple hats. You work for NRDC, now Hilda Bay on the Metropolitan Board. You see that, you know, Micah is a little shy about what he thinks about CEQA and what's going on in California. If you were to take all those hats and respond to that, what would that sound like?
Well, I'm going to start my answer by stating that I am not a lawyer. Like many of you, I am a civil engineer, and I started my engineering career right here in Orange County. So I will defer my answer to some of my colleagues from NRDC who I asked about this question. And, you know, they stated very emphatically that they would not reform CEQA. And really because of the need to protect the environment. As Alf mentioned, most of the reforms that we have seen be presented have been ones that would not be protective of the environment. So although I agree that we need to be able to do projects faster, and I think that there are ways to do that, I do not have the expertise on CEQA as an engineer to weigh in on what the specific details would be.
Well, this is an interesting moment because you're sitting next to labor, and you guys are actually agreeing. Now, you heard what Micah said about it. You know, you are about creating jobs, and things are not being built. Stadiums are being built, but not life-critical infrastructure issues that also create jobs. But yet you say no to CEQA reform. How come?
A lot of issues of environmental justice that workers are connected to, issues of equity with workers and the environment, as well as the fact that, you just heard it, there's precedent here that you could move legislation to figure out how to get things done. So there's an opportunity to get things done still without gutting an important piece of legislation that protects the environment as well as environmental justice and workers.
So if it wasn't de-gutting, if it wasn't so big, like Alf said, if it was just a little bit, would you support it? Like a
Depends
litigation?
on what it was.
Litigation.
Maybe the adjudication process can be streamlined,
Okay.
maybe,
So
yeah.
kind
Those
of.
conversations.
All right.
All right, okay.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Let's make a mental note, litigation streamlining it. That you don't have to be, you can just play one on TV. But Mayor, you emphatically said
Absolutely.
yes.
I sure did, because the reality is CEQA has become a weapon against moving any project forward. Now, I get environmental justice, I get workers' rights, but when you have a community that needs housing, we need jobs, we have to move infrastructure projects so people will be safe, we've got to have a happy medium there. And we don't have it today. It is a weapon against any future growth.
And those are powerful words, weapon, right? It's not just a hindrance, it's a weapon. Now, from City of San Diego, you also wear the hat of the vice chair dealing with water and managing water. Do you agree with that from a city perspective?
Well, here's what I would say. I mean, I think from my perspective, I also see the threat of what the legislation that has been presented with regards to CEQA can do to it. It's effectively been a gut every single time. So I think the word reform is probably the biggest piece that I have challenged with. I absolutely agree with the mayor. She's right that CEQA has been weaponized to move anything forward. Why we have a housing crisis largely in California is because there are groups who will use CEQA to protest it and cause it to be delayed for years and years and years. I see that very clearly. We see that very clearly in the city of San Diego. So do I think that CEQA should be reformed? No. Do I think that we need to deal with the weaponization of CEQA and those who seek to abuse CEQA to hinder progress, to hinder us from being able to build projects like water infrastructure, like housing? I absolutely do. And I think that I hope some of the legislature will hear some of that, because I think it is honestly, I think one of the things that is tough about it is that it is such a delicate issue that it becomes one of those ones that no legislator wants to touch. But I do think touching it can allow us to have the conversation to find that middle ground that would allow this kind of stuff to stop happening.
So do you feel, yeah, give him a round of applause. So do you think we can actually make a list of those specific things that can be weaponizing, that can really get in the way of good work? Do you believe we can do that?
I think all of us have seen it, so yes.
Good, okay. So I'm gonna go to Patricia. Chamber, LA area, it's not just LA, it's all around the area. You've heard what they said. What are your thoughts in hearing some of these responses about CEQA?
Well, working for the chamber, we hear firsthand from our members the delays and costs, and a lot of developers in Los Angeles are not developing in Los Angeles. They're going to other counties other cities where they're finding it much easier to build. And so that's leading to issues with housing. We have a major homelessness crisis, and we have a housing affordability crisis. And so we need more production of housing, and the only way we're going to reduce the price of housing is by having more production of housing. And so we have a major underproduction happening in California. So, I mean, that's just housing that I'm using as an example, but that is the same case in all types of infrastructure throughout the state. And so we need to come to some agreement, all parties, business, because we are for job creation. We want to build communities, but we need to have the appropriate infrastructure to have healthy and livable communities and sustainable communities. But we can't do that without these roadblocks that these developers want to help communities face when they're trying to build.
And you can't have housing without water, and I'm really glad you brought that up, because we got our friends from BIA who can really speak to the challenges. And you have an interesting role, because you serve on the council for Yorba Linda, you serve on the board for AQMD, and it's quite a bit to juggle. So in terms of housing, we've seen a lot in the news about what's going on with the UC campuses relative to how those things are holding back housing that are desperately needed for students. There's a lot of bills that are out there. So what are your thoughts about how CEQA can be reformed so that we could alleviate the housing crisis?
Well, first of all, the fact that any water infrastructure project would be held up by CEQA should be alarming. Not to mention it being really pivotal to an obstacle for meeting the housing demand in California. And we are in a housing crisis, we are in a housing shortage. I think everyone's echoing in that. The weaponization, as the mayor talked about, is evident. And it's systemic. And we're not talking about ending CEQA, we're talking about amending it. It's not mutually exclusive. We can have both environmental consciousness and be good stewards of the environment, but also make sure that we're not losing a generation of children who have to leave California in order to have a part of the American dream. So the facts are the facts. And when you have nearly 50% of California's housing production in 2020 held up in CEQA lawsuits, that's according to the Jobs and Economy report. We have 48,000 housing units targeted to CEQA lawsuits filed just in 2020. So if we continue the status quo, we're going to get more of the same. We need to find transparency, and those who are gaming the system and putting out these anonymous lawsuits. And let's be open and transparent about who's filing the lawsuits. We certainly can have reform that ensures we are environmental stewards, but also we can ensure that we meet the governor's goal of 3.5 million units that he has set out for us, which is an ambitious goal. And without CEQA reform, there's no way that's going to happen.
When we talk about housing, there's a lot of frustration. Very high goals, not ability to do it. When it comes to water, we've gotten funding. And whether it's CEQA or anything that we do, everything when it was done made sense at the time. But times have changed. I mean, there's a lot of laws in the penal code that when you look at it, say, why is that there? Because it's about thick as a phone book. It's because somebody screwed up. So we get that, and we know why these things happen. But from someone who is the head of the California Water Commission, and you're trying to let all these Prop 1 money go, which was approved back 2014, that's a long time ago. So how do you see, as a chair, Matthew, how has CEQA affected your ability to get these funding to the projects?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'm going to tell you this is a question we get a lot. Where are these projects that were approved in 2014 that we've got the funds allocated for? Like Eric, I'm a member of this administration, and I deal with a set of statutory guidelines, statutory requirements that are very, very clear about how we're able to fund. And so the first thing is we had 8 projects that were advanced. We're at 7 right now. Hope to see our first one in May for final approval. We're very focused on this. But the period for vetting and for projects to come forward ended January 1st of 2022. So we just got to a place where we've got projects that have been got through feasibility, were selected, and now they're coming to us for final approval. And they're going to have to hit these guidelines. And as it sits today, the CEQA guidelines that are on the books, they're going to have to work through those. They're going to have to make that fit. So each applicant has to address those issues. So we have them in front of us all the time. I know we're all focused on doing everything we can to hasten the process and get applicants in front of us. But the way it's wired today, it takes a long time. It probably takes too long, because we're talking about projects that probably won't complete till 2030, which is going to be 16 years from the Prop 1.
Wow. That's very interesting.
I want to, it's not all about CEQA. I mean, there are so many things that go on. I mean, I want to compliment the Water Commission for all it did in taking a set of factors, looking at a range of projects. Remember, these are all local projects. They have to make decisions. They have to make financial decisions. It's not all about CEQA.
Sure.
It's been 12 years since we, less than that, 8 years. 8 years since we passed Prop 1 that I helped develop. The state water project got approved in 1960. It didn't get done till 1973, 13 years. So these projects, there's a whole range of things that go on in these. It's not just about, you can't just put a bunch of engineers at work and build projects, because that's not who we are as California. There are a number of things that need to get balanced, and putting it all in CEQA, which is what your questions seem to do, is unfair, because there are a range of things. There are financial issues. There are a whole range of issues, and we've got to get together. We've got to pull together, and it's not just about CEQA. It's about breaking down the barriers and building more collaboration with people who have different interests. And it's not just about one agency by one agency, but about all of us working together. And I think Mr. Villaraigosa mentioned some of that challenge. Yes, thank you for Orange County, Los Angeles, and San Diego coming together here today. I think that's a great step. And that's a step, but it's not because of CEQA.
Right, and if I fail to say there are other issues, but we can only talk about one topic at a time. We're just trying to be manageable and incremental with 14 people, so just bear with me. So we're going to talk about some of the other ones and what you think is that one thing that is the most problematic about bringing projects online, on time, and in the way that we need to. So we're going to come back to that. But I think this is interesting because just in the conversations alone so far, words do matter. When I said you believe in CEQA reform, there were a lot of you that said no. But then when you use words like amendment, or not the complete gutting of it, but just a little bit of it, I seem to get a little bit of everyone nodding their heads. And I think that's the beauty of this because, you throw all of you in one room and let you all talk. I want to be a fly on that wall. So this is sort of a way that we're doing this to kind of figure out what you guys all think and bouncing off of each other on those ideas. So coming to you, Sandy, in San Diego, you've done a lot of great projects, from desalination to Pure projects, among a host of other things that you're working on. And you hear about how long things take. As someone who's building these projects, what are you seeing as far as the effect of CEQA? And you're still doing all these things, but what can help if we were to just tweak or amend CEQA?
Well, we have done a lot, and we've gone through the permitting process to build a dam, raise a dam. build a desalination plant, do the quantification settlement agreement to bring conserved water to San Diego County that we created. And we've gone through those processes. And probably the starkest reminder to me, having been intimately involved in the desal plant, has been CEQA in terms of the lawsuits that were filed, 14 of them, prior to getting the project to the point that the permits were finished and we could go to construction. And at that time, we had labor hand in hand with the Water Authority to move that project forward to not only bring water to the region, but to bring jobs, good paying jobs to San Diego County. And that project literally took 14 years to get completed. And it's a critical water source, and it came on at a time when the state was in significant drought, and it saved us in ensuring we had sufficient water in San Diego County. And we just had a reprieve of the atmospheric rivers over the last couple of months, but we were literally 2 or 3 months from a major crisis in the state of California. And we have got to come to terms with the fact that this state's quality of life and economy is dependent on having sufficient water resources. And if it takes 15 to 20 years to build a project, that isn't going to work. And so we have a reprieve, and I'm already starting to hear it now. Oh, well, you know, we can back off a little bit. We can't back off. Our future of this state is dependent on us getting our act together. CEQA is a piece of it. I agree with Alf, and we'll talk about it more in a minute. But my other big thing is the permitting processes and the permitting agencies coming together and working as one, as opposed to being sequential. And you're in, frankly, permitting hell for years to get a project off the ground. So I'll stop there.
Yeah. I like that we got a new word, permitting hell. Now, Carol, being from San Diego, I know you guys done a lot of work together, a lot of collaboration. How have you been be able to help the water agency to do some of these projects? And what are some of the things that other areas can do, you know, despite these challenges, CEQAs and other things that get in the way of projects?
I think that the coalitions are really strong in the allyship, and frankly, labor, because that's who I represent in San Diego, as the Building Trades Council, obviously we're talking about good quality jobs for local people. All of those things are very crucial to these bigger infrastructure projects. The projects are good for our communities, just as they are, but they can be leveraged to be more, and that's something that Mayor Villaraigosa mentioned. And so being more, meaning we're not just building infrastructure, we're building lives, we're building families, et cetera. And so when we partner together to advocate together, we can be much more effective getting through permitting agencies, getting through all these different barriers and hurdles, even coming to terms with our Enviro community friends who may or may not be happy with the project in the moment as we're doing it. So this kind of coalition work where we're leveraging our relationships across the board and throughout the ecosystem really matters. And frankly, you know, I really agree with what Brother Medrano was saying earlier when he said that, you know, this is real, the CEQA is not, it can be conceived as a problem, but it also addresses things that are real, which include environmental justice, equity, economic justice. And so if we are tackling those together from the beginning, then we don't have to deal with CEQA stuff as much because it doesn't become the problem. So it's really about having that holistic approach.